Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the Online Series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. We're kicking off a brand new rank season. The new rank season actually started about a week ago or so, but the previous few videos I posted in the last week, I had actually pre-recorded, and I was just gone for a couple of days. So I am back, I've gotten a haircut, it's been a long time as well, and today we are kicking off a new rank season with a very fun Assault Vest RESHIRAM team. This was built by TSL Tang. I have featured so many of his teams in the last year and a half or so, and he always just comes up with really innovative stuff that is also able to top the ladder. So he finished in the top 30 of the last ranked season. As always, I've linked his Twitter down in the description below, as well as a rental and paste courtesy of him. And yeah, RESHIRAM's just a Pokemon that we have not explored very much yet, but with all the Sun teams that are running around at the moment, I think this is a very underrated pick. And so, as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team. If you want to just skip to the battles, timestamps are linked down in the description below. And thanks so much as always for watching. If you do enjoy, please show your support by leaving a like in the video. I'd really appreciate it. So, let's talk a little bit about RESHIRAM. What are the main advantages of using it in this format? First of all, it is a Pokemon that gets a lot of nice offensive attacks. As you can see, this RESHIRAM has Blue Flare, Solar Beam, Draco Meteor, and Earth Power. So when you're Dynamax, there are actually very few Pokemon in the format that can reliably resist it. Now, some downsides of RESHIRAM, it's a little bit slower as a restricted mon, and there are a lot of Pokemon that can deal huge amounts of damage to it, right? Specifically, Ground-type Pokemon. So Pokemon like Groudon and Landorus T can be troublesome. Now, Groudon actually, interestingly enough, is not too much of an issue because RESHIRAM can outspeed it, you can max Wormwinded to decrease its attack, and you have Grimmsnarl with Reflect on this team. When you combine all of that, Groudon actually becomes a way smaller threat than you would initially imagine it to be, and all of that adds up very, very quickly. Landorus T, however, is a pretty big issue, especially Dynamax, because you can't really knock out Landorus easily. You know, it can max Quake and increase its special defense and also do a lot of damage to you. And so that's why the team also has Life Orb Defiant Thundurus T, just because Thundurus makes it really tough for Landorus to just like sweep comfortably, and it also makes it harder for you to even just lead Landorus, right? So against teams with Landorus, you can consider leading something like Grimmsnarl Thundurus or Zacian Thundurus and just put on pressure against it immediately. But I think RESHIRAM has a pretty nice niche in the format, and it also is really good into Zacian. That continues to be the #1 restricted Pokemon in the format, and it makes it tougher for Zacian to do very much because, you know, even if you're Dynamax, like Behemoth Blade or a +1 Play Rough, neither do that much damage to RESHIRAM, and RESHIRAM can just one-shot you in return, and you don't even necessarily need to Dynamax, right? You can just click a Blue Flare and go for it onto Zacian. And so having a favorable matchup into the most common restricted, that's pretty good. You look at other restricteds in the format, Calyrex Shadow Rider, okay, AV RESHIRAM walls that pretty well. You've got Kyogre. Kyogre's interesting because of the weather dynamic, right? But Grimmsnarl can set up screens. It's got Thunder Wave, Spirit Break to kind of disrupt Kyogre. And then Gastrodon obviously can be really valuable because you could switch it in next to the RESHIRAM, and then suddenly you can't even Geyser into RESHIRAM, leaving you to go for max Hailstorms or just Ice-type attacks on Kyogre. And so, like, the Thundurus, Gastrodon, Rillaboom core of the team is really valuable into Kyogre. And then RESHIRAM in itself is just pretty solid until the Charizard Sun stuff that's running around right now. Grimmsnarl here is very classic, just Reflect, Light Screen, you know, dual screens, Thunder Wave, Spirit Break. Zacian here is pretty standard as well. It is a little bit bulkier, which is really important because you've got dual screens on Grimm, and Substitute is another move here that I think is pretty neat, which will allow you to stall out your opponent's Dynamaxes. In my experience playing with this team, I think it's really important to try to stall out your opponent's Dynamax early because RESHIRAM is incredible for late game sweeps, but it does struggle when picking up early, like one-hit knockouts, just because there are a lot of Pokemon that can, you know, take its attacks decently. And the thing with this RESHIRAM is, like, it can, like, if you can pick up a KO, it accelerates the game so much, but if you go up against something that's really bulky, say Psychic Seed Indeedee, and it actually redirects an attack away and wastes one turn of your Dynamax, that can be really bad. And so being able to stall out your opponent's Dynamax via screens from Grimmsnarl, Substitute on Zacian, and Yawn Pressure from Gastrodon is really, really valuable. Last couple of things to talk about here are Brick Break on Thundurus. You know, it's pretty standard now, but it's valuable against opposing Grimmsnarls in case, you know, they play a very screen-heavy centric strategy. Miracle Seed, High Horsepower Protect on Rillaboom, so the Protect here also valuable in stalling out your opponent's Dynamaxes, and then classic lefties Gastrodon. So overall, the TLDR on RESHIRAM has actually a pretty favorable matchup into a lot of restricteds. The damage output might be a little bit more underwhelming, so if you can stall out your opponent's Dynamax, then it can really have heavy payoffs, especially in endgames. So excited to show this off. And question of the day, I want to know what your favorite restricted duo at the moment is. For me, I haven't really tried out too many new things, so Gleo Groudon obviously being one of my favorites from recent memory, but yeah, maybe we'll see if RESHIRAM Zacian is able to throw itself onto that #1 spot. So let me know yours in the comment section below, and let's get started. Wow. Okay, did not expect to see Palkia Yveltal as a restricted duo. I don't think I've actually ever fought against that, so that's really cool. Rillaboom, Thundurus, Grimm, and Whimsicott to close things out. So, Reshiram's interesting here. Like, Palkia obviously can get super effective damage off against us and outspeeds us. And Yveltal also gets access to Snarl. But with the Salt Vest and screen support from Grimmsnarl, like, I actually don't think it's super bad. So, I definitely want the top 3 Mons, I think, in Reshiram, Zacian, and Grimm. As for the last one, Rillaboom would primarily be interesting against the Grimm. Like, ideally, we don't let their Grimmsnarl get more than 1 screen up, right? So for that reason, I'm actually down for Grimmsnarl and Zacian as a lead, Reshiram in the back, and then Gastro's interesting here because of Yawn. I don't love Thundurus. That's primarily good against like Landorus and Kyogre teams. It's not bad in this matchup though, truthfully. Gastro does make it so that they can't Geyser as easily, but if I were my opponent, I'd probably be clicking Max Wormwind more frequently anyway, but I think I'm still going to bring it because getting a single Yawn off against either Yveltal or Palkia can be a really big deal here. So, I don't know if this is the absolute correct choice. Team Preview was a little bit tricky here outside of like the main 3 Mons I wanted to bring in, Grimmsnarl, the Reshiram, and the Zacian. So, yeah, definitely not a team I expected to go up against for the first one, especially while using Reshiram, but they're going to go with Whimsicott and Palkia. Okay. Fine by me. A lot of different plays we can make on turn 1, including Light Screen into Behemoth Blade. I could see Palkia just going for a max move on turn 1, so I could also just like Light Screen and Protect just to stall at a turn of their Dynamax, should they go for that. I could also switch Zacian out into Gastrodon right now. A lot of options. Honestly, turn 1 I am down just to Protect here. If Palkia Dynamaxes, I think it'll be very, very good for me. Maybe they just Earth Power, that would be fine. The reason I don't like switching out into Gastrodon is because then my turn 2 position is kind of awkward, where I don't really get very much damage off with either Grimmsnarl nor Gastrodon. And Whimsicott can taunt the Gastrodon to prevent me from yawning. They are going to Dynamax on turn 1, so I honestly think that's a good sign for me. They could choose to Geyser and Moonblast into the Grimm here, but I kind of expect them to just like Tailwind Max Quake. And if they Tailwind Max Quake turn 1, I think that's pretty strong for us going into the latter turns. I think one of Reshiram's strengths is that if you can actually stall out your opponent's Dynamax, it's really nice as a late game sweeper, because it has really good coverage, especially this Assault Vest set. There's Protect. Cool, they go for Tailwind, that's fine. Next turn, if I want to damage Palkia, I can just Thunder Wave into Behemoth Blade it. So we'll get Light Screen up. Light Screen just to ensure that, like, even if they Geysered into Grimm would be okay. And there's Max Quake. Perfect. So the fact that we got to bait out a Dynamax this early on is generally a good sign. 189 down to 158. That didn't actually do that much, did it? 189 down to 158. So they're not Life Orb? Okay. I could stay in here. I don't mind switching out into Gastrodon though, because late game Zacian is just so good, and my opponent may have Helping Hand in this position. Spare Break's honestly not bad here. Like, I don't necessarily need to click Thunder Wave. The other question is, does Reflect give me any value here? Their main physical attackers are Rillaboom. It's pretty much just Rillaboom, so I actually don't even need a Reflect here in my opinion. I'm just going to go for Spirit Break on a Palkia to reduce its damage output on turn 3 of the game and switch out into Gastrodon right now. The whole idea we're aiming for is to stall out my opponent's Dynamax and then sweep with Reshiram in the endgame right now. And we've already set ourselves up for good success in this early game, even if they have Helping Hand here. Ooh, Fake Tears is going to be a slight problem, but I don't think Fake Tears into Quake KOs with Light Screen being up. That's a nice move from them to have, though. So let's see. Okay, nice. Yeah, this is the beauty of Screens Grimm. It's so valuable in stalling out your opponent's Dynamaxes. So we've seen Tailwind, we've seen Fake Tears, Moonblast / Dazzling Gleam surely as a third. I'm just wondering what their final attack is going to be. Policy Palkia here would be really scary. Look at that damage output from Spirit Break, by the way. That's really impressive. Okay, cool. The Spirit Break here is actually so valuable as well, mainly because... And also, by the way, like, Grimm is actually nicely protected right now because Gastro protects it from Water-type attacks from Palkia, and then you obviously can't go for Dragon-type attacks onto it either. So, how many turns of Tailwind are left? There's still 2. Okay. Yeah, I'm down to just Spirit Break Palkia again. I mean, Palkia's not really doing very much right now. Protect Gastrodon here for sure. Protect Gastro. I could also just sack Gastro here, but with Whimsicott having fake tears, I want to be a little bit careful right now. So I'm down to just Spirit Break Palkia and then Protect Gastro. Like, we are going to stall on my opponent's Dynamax, and that's the most important part of the equation right now. Okay. Yep, they're just going to Moonblast. But that's fine. Even if you Moonblast Quake Grimmsnarl, I'm surviving the turn, and that's what I really need right now. Okay. Yep, just another Max Quake. Don't really have any other options with Palkia here. And they target the Gastrodon. Perfect. Okay. The increased stages of special defense are a little bit annoying for now, but it's fine. I have taken a decent amount of damage across the board, so I have to be a little bit careful, especially with my opponent still having that fake tears pressure, but Grim has just been really nice here. Okay, I could consider switching Gastrodon out right now, but I don't think it's worth eating up. Actually, an Earth Power on AV RESHIRAM with them being at -2 special attack isn't really that bad to face off right now. Another Spirit Break here actually will just KO Palkia. Yeah, I don't feel the need to like target Whim. Maybe they get another Tailwind up, but at this point in the game, I honestly think it's fine because we'll have dealt with the biggest threat to our RESHIRAM. So Spirit Break Palkia here, and I'm actually okay to just sacrifice the Gastrodon from this position. Okay, they go for Rend. Yeah, that's fine. What is Whimsicott going for? Is it Trick Rooming here? Because it's moving after the Palkia. Oh. Or sorry, Palkia moved before the Whimsicott. That is interesting. I don't even think that helps them that much, especially because I can self Thunder Wave. But very cool. So it's Tailwind and Trick Room Whimsicott with Moonblast and Fake Tears. Let's go on into RESHIRAM now. I can even self Thunder Wave myself. I just don't know how fast like RESHIRAM is going to be relative to the other Pokemon that they have on their team right now. But Fake Tears on RESHIRAM can be a little bit scary, but, you know, Palkia was, like, the #1 threat to eliminate, and so the fact that we stalled out my opponent's Dynamax and now bring our main Dynamax option in is really good. Yeah, it's Yveltal. Okay, that's no surprise. Fine by me, though. You can't Dynamax. Okay, so Yveltal is actually faster than me under Trick Room here, but even if you Snarl and you're Assault Vest, like, so be it, right? I can Spirit Break the Yveltal, which is a ton of damage. I could actually max Grimmsnarl here instead. I think it's a kind of a fun play, but like even if I get hit by a Snarl, RESHIRAM is just so consistent here. I guess unless you're, but even if you're Policy, it's not much of a deal. So yeah, just gonna Spirit Break, Dynamax, and then we will go for Flare here because Wormwind doesn't like decreasing either Pokemon's attack right now isn't really significant. I actually think maxing Grim here could make sense if I was confident on it, like, KOing Yveltal. But I'm not confident in KOing it, plus I also like getting a special attack drop here. So, very interesting, though. I wasn't expecting the Trick Room, but I don't think it's that much of an issue. Yveltal, like, yes, it's a little bit scary, but, like, Grimmsnarl has actually been the MVP here, just being able to Spirit Break away and actually deal very good damage. And it's one of the downsides of Yveltal plus Palkia being so very weak in a format with a lot of Whimsicotts, Grimmsnarls, and Zacians with Play Rough. It doesn't really do any favors. Okay. No Policy. Yeah, it's going to be Oblivion Wing. But even after Fake Tears with the Assault Vest and Light Screen, that did basically negative damage. And it also means no Snarl, but there's a chance that they are AV here. Yep, looks to be the case. Cool. But with that, then I'd, you know, Spirit Break into Yveltal here, super free. Flare into Whimsicott, super free. No reason to not go for that. Actually, there's one upside, which is clicking Max Quake for a special defense boost right now. But I think my opponent's team just really falls off damage-wise after their Dynamax is over. Quake does allow Grim to basically guarantee hang around for a little bit longer, and Whimsicott's not really a threat to me right now, actually, so I am down to Quake it, because I assume there's a Focus Sash on it. And so if I'm not KOing it anyway, might as well get a special defense boost in the off chance that, like, their Moonblast early on Grim was a very low roll. I don't know the damage calc from, like, modest Whimsicott, for example, although most Whimsicotts are timid here. But, yeah, like, my opponent's team just doesn't have too much damage post-Dynamax, and, like, by keeping Whimsicott out on the field the entire game, it actually puts them in a pretty awkward spot, because, yeah, it has Fake Tears, yeah, it has Moonblast, but you're not really doing that much more beyond that, right? So they have gotten me down to -4 now onto it, but Spirit Brick's just going to KO the Yveltal. And it's like, you don't have any other Pokemon in the back that can really capitalize off these special attack drops right now, which is why I was fine Dynamaxing RESHIRAM. If they had like another really strong sweeper, special sweeper under Trick Room, then I'd be a little bit more cautious. For example, if there were a Gastrodon in the back, yeah, maybe I wouldn't Dynamax the RESHIRAM immediately. And then that's where maxing Grimmsnarl actually becomes really interesting. But now I get a special defense boost on the Grimm as well. And like, I mean, what's their final Pokemon gonna do here, right? You can see like AV RESHIRAM under screens is just so difficult to knock out when Dynamaxed, but Palkia was obviously such a big threat, right? So I wanted to make sure we dealt with that sooner than later. But the lead just worked out really well because I essentially baited my opponent into Dynamaxing on turn 1. And it makes sense from their point, right? Because if you don't Dynamax, you just can feint to a play rough from the Zacian, which is scary. So we're gonna switch out into Zacian here, just to survive a potential Grassy Glide. RESHIRAM's just going to demolish either Pokemon with a Max Flare here. So we'll target Rillaboom, and yeah, either Pokemon can just finish off the game. So definitely an interesting matchup, and one in which you can see how, like, if you use more niche restricted duos, you got to be a little bit careful, right? Because Yveltal Palkia is just so weak to Fairy here, Fairy typing specifically, that Grimmsnarl was actually the MVP against that, right? So you can see even with all those decreased stages of special defense, like RESHIRAM just doesn't really care with the Assault Vest and the Light Screen, especially with us being Dynamaxed. So the key way to win this game was essentially waste my opponent's Dynamax, and we were fortunately able to do that. If they had held their Dynamax for a little bit later, things could have been scary. And then this Whimsicott with both Trick Room and Tailwind is really interesting as an option as well. Especially because, yeah, one thing to note is that it's actually outspeeding the RESHIRAM under Trick Room as well, which indicates that it's slower. So wondering what the EV spread on that is. Either way, though, very pleased about RESHIRAM's performance in this one. So now we can just Blade and switch RESHIRAM out into... I wonder if we take the Moonblast, actually. There's no reason to switch out here, because Blade's always going to KO Whimsicott. So I am curious if we can survive a Moonblast, even with all the decreased stages of special defense. I think we should, because of Light Screen. Because we're at what, -3? Oh, they target Zacian anyway. Yeah, that does no damage. And RESHIRAM gets a blue flare. Nice, to finish things off. So RESHIRAM in the end picks up almost every KO in this game, and that's what we're looking for. But props to my opponent. I think it's, you know, in this format, it's really hard to use niche restricted duos like that. And I think if their team had something like an Operate under Trick Room that was a special attacker, things could have been a lot scarier. Something like a Gastrodon, for example, right? And with Yveltal Palkia, you just need to really cover for the Fairy types that exist in the formats. You really want to have favorable matchups against Whimsicott, Grimmsnarl, and Zacian specifically. So, yeah. Either way, though, fun debut for RESHIRAM, so let's keep things going. Next game here, and I love to see a Calyrex Shadow Rider Dialga with Togekiss, Rillaboom, Indeedee, and Cinderace. Almost feels like playing, what, Series 5, Series 6? And you got Dialga and Calyrex thrown on there. So, yeah, it's funny, with RESHIRAM, like, I was hoping to just go up against the classic Sun teams, or just the Zacian Ogre teams, because that's where, like, Thundurus, Gastro, Rillaboom really thrive, but always love going up against really unique restricted duos, and I know from a viewer's perspective it can be more enjoyable to watch some of these more obscure, you know, restricteds and combos go up against each other. So, very fascinating. I mean, RESHIRAM is still solid here. Like, Grimm with screens is still solid. The one thing to watch out for if I lead Grimm is Rillaboom plus Dialga, or I guess even a Rillaboom Togekiss. The idea of fake out into KOing Grimmsnarl immediately is a little bit scary. So Rilla Togekiss, Rilla Dialga are the things that I mentioned I'd be a little bit wary of. It normally feels really weird to bring Grimmsnarl on the back, but in this game it makes some sense. I just, like, don't really love any of the final three options between Thundurus, Gastrodon, or Rillaboom in this one. Basically, we have to weather the storm of Dialga Dynamax early. Okay, I think I will go with Grimm, RESHIRAM, Zacian, and I'm going to bring my own Rillaboom, mainly because of its matchup against Calyrex Shadow Rider, plus I can change the terrain against Indeedee as well. Gastro's not bad here. If they didn't have Rillaboom, I would definitely bring it. I would even consider it as a Dynamax option, but they've got Rillaboom. And Gastro also just gets demolished by Roar of Time / just Max Worm win from Life Orb Dialga. And there's not really too many great ways around it. Okay, they go with Dialga Togekiss. I'm okay with this. I mean, as long as they can't deny my turn 1 Light Screen, then I think it's always a favorable trade. I do have to be careful here because Togekiss does get access to Yawn. We're actually faster than Dialga, which is good to know as well. So, like, I'm down to Light Screen here, but I'm almost thinking about switching out RESHIRAM. What are they going to go for? A Warm Wind or a Max Quake here? With Light Screen, like Rillaboom can definitely tank one. And if we could get them to Dynamax early, that would be really good. I think I'm just going to go into Rillaboom because Zacian's obviously so valuable for the end game here. I mean, if RESHIRAM could one-shot Togekiss, yeah, I'd probably just stay in here. But Togekiss is pretty specially defensive. And I don't want to Dynamax into my opponent clicking Yawn onto RESHIRAM because I don't really have too many great... Oh, you know, the thing is, my one way of actually denying Yawn would be Self-Thunder Wave on turn 2 of the game. Okay, they just opted for Follow Me. That's fine. Dialga didn't max, so I'm thinking it's going for Trick Room, which honestly I don't think is too much of an issue right now. Especially with that Self-Thunder Wave play I can make. Okay, they just opt for Flash Cannon. That's fine. Cool. And they're not Life Orbed. Okay, makes this next turn pretty interesting. Reflect, honestly not that valuable here. It's really only good against Cinderace and Rillaboom. Enough of a reason to still think about clicking it. Zacian can come out and just demolish Togekiss. I do have to cover for it being Babiri right now. T-Wave onto either works, but I'm worried about Trick Room coming up. Spirit Break works, but they could just Flash Cannon. I'm interested in Fake Out and Spirit Break into Dialga here right now, honestly. Yeah, and they don't Dynamax. Okay, cool. That's what I was expecting them to go for. Could just be a Follow Me with Togekiss here. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's a free Spirit Break. And the Spirit Break on a Togekiss is actually really valuable because basically we want to be in a position where I can KO Togekiss through Babiri with the Zacian in the back. Grim with Spirit Break today has just been valuable for damage, so I'm pretty happy about it. The only awkward thing right now is like breaking through the Togekiss, and like my opponent has been smart here and not Dynamaxed either, right? So I'm down to Reflect here, just play it safe. I mean, I think they're just going to Follow Me again, to be honest, and Flash Cannon Grim again. So I'm down to Reflect here, and then switch out into Zacian, because I want to accelerate this battle a little bit. Then the idea is if they knock out Grimmsnarl, okay, Zacian comes in, and I get RESHIRAM out next to it, so then I can just Behemoth Blade, Togekiss, Dynamax RESHIRAM, and then Max Quake into the Dialga slot. And this allows me to conserve Rillaboom for the late game against Calyrex Shadow Rider as well. There's not too much at risk here because I think it's pretty low risk. Like, I don't think they're really going to target the... Cool, Helping Hand is fine here. I don't really care about that. I want them to KO Grimmsnarl right now. I guess if they went Helping Hand, like Earth Power or Flamethrower into the Zacian slot, that could cause some issues for me. But it's Flash Cannon. Yep, into Grim. Perfect. I want them to KO Grim right now. Beautiful. That's exactly the setup I'm looking for. So the idea of early trades, losing a Pokemon, but getting both of our best Pokemon into a very advantageous position right now is great. And I also know that I'm faster than the Dialga, which is also very great. The one thing to be careful about is that they have that Helping Hand on Togekiss, but because RESHIRAM appears to be faster than Dialga based off of the way the ability is activated, I guess the only question is, does Togekiss take a Behemoth Blade with Babiri from that range? I wouldn't think so. I want to Dynamax, just Quake into Dialga, and then just Behemoth Blade into Togekiss. If it is, I don't know. I don't think it's max HP defense. Like, that Spirit Break did a lot of damage to Togekiss, so I'm pretty confident in Behemoth Blade KOing even through Babiri right now. Ideally, what's the best case scenario here? The best case scenario would be Dialga Dynamaxing. You know, one thing that I didn't talk about until now is Weakness Policy Dialga. That could pose some issues for me here. Because, like, the only other Pokemon that really was good against Dialga in the back that I didn't bring was Gastrodon, right? Like, I had Thundurus, Rillaboom, and Gastrodon. Those were the three options. Now, Zacian's pretty good against Dialga, but I have to KO Togekiss first, and RESHIRAM, unfortunately, is just not very good into Togekiss. Like, Redirection is pretty obnoxious to go up against with RESHIRAM. Yeah, there's the Dynamax. That's fine. I expect Helping Hand. Yeah, it's just if it's Weakness Policy here and they actually get a KO into Zacian, this causes some big issues for me, because then I don't know if I have enough firepower to win the end game. So the other play I could have considered was like going for a substitute instead. Best case is you just go for Follow Me with Togekiss, we get the KO onto it, you're not Policy, and then Quake gives me a special defense boost. Okay, there's Follow Me. So that's good already, no Helping Hand at least. No Babiri either, cool. Babiri is an item I would expect on Togekiss, though. Like, max HP, max defense. Babiri, Togekiss makes sense in this format. So I want to cover for that. And Yawn is just such a good move that on turn 1 I didn't want to Dynamax. So, all that work, really, for very little in the end, especially with a critical hit, but it's fine. More importantly, now RESHIRAM gets this Max Quake off first. Let's see how much we do into Dialga. You're not AV. That's an incredible amount of damage. Was that a crit? Double crit. I mean, obviously the one on Togekiss didn't matter, but it's just like one of those turns where you like use up all your RNG and for what? And they are policy. Okay. Flare would have been a little bit smarter there then, I think. But they Wormwind, and RESHIRAM should survive this with Light Screen and the special defense boost. Oh my gosh, that didn't even do half. Beautiful. Okay. Now, they did get a drop onto Zacian, but that's fine. Ultimately, I don't think the crit mattered, because I think another Quake would have KO'd, and if not Quake plus Sacred Sword or Blade definitely would have KO'd. So, if there's any time to get a double critical hit in one turn, this is not the game for it, but still lucky, right? We'll take it. And one thing about, like, good luck in RNG is, like, it can always just tilt your opponent, even if it doesn't actually matter. And that's a pretty big factor in this game as well. So, Calyrex comes out. No surprise there. I've got a special defense boost on both. So, like, with the special defense boost and with Light Screen, the beautiful thing about this RESHIRAM is that you have Max Wormwind and Max Quake, so you can combo really quickly with screen support to just, like, be very difficult to knock out, right? So... I guess Dialga could Max Guard here. I'm fairly sure a Quake KOs here. And we have Rillaboom in the back, so if we just want to make sure we don't faint this turn. Yeah. Okay. Quake, and just Behemoth Blade into Calyrex. Feels fine. Actually, I think if we didn't get the crit, yeah, they do Max Guard. If we didn't get the crit, I needed to double up onto Dialga. So that crit actually did matter because it made this play, this turn a little bit easier. That's another crit. 3 crits in 3 moves. Wow. You can see even with the crit, with us having AV and the special defense boost, not really too much of an issue. This Zacian took no damage, essentially. Great. This was an interesting game about positioning, because the early game against Togekiss was kind of annoying, and I had to find a way to basically threaten the Togekiss while also being able to Dynamax, RESHIRAM confidently, essentially. Okay. Talk about crits, though. What a day for crits. Okay, no more Grassy Terrain, so that's perfect because we've timed it so that now Rillaboom gets another, fresh set, fresh couple turns of Grassy Terrain. That's really valuable. So, one more turn of Dynamax left here, multiple turns of Screen. You revealed Astral Barrage. Just Quake. Thinking about who they can potentially switch out into right now. Could be Cinderace. Well, I could sub here as well, but I don't think we really need to. Yeah, I'm down to just double up on Dialga. There's nothing on their team in the back that they could even switch into that takes this combo. Oh, they get... What is this game? Another critical hit comes out. They don't end up making the switch. We will get the KO onto Dialga, but the Sacred Sword doesn't finish it off. I mean, these crits have actually been a pretty big issue for me, right? Because if they didn't happen, this game would essentially be over. But now, they've stalled out my Dynamax on RESHIRAM. The good thing is I'm at +2 special defense, right? But... yeah, that's pretty scary. Especially because if I was confident Max Quake would KO there, then I could have obviously just picked up a double knockout. Didn't really want Dialga getting another hit off, but now I've left the room open for Rillaboom to cause some issues for me, and that's scary. Okay. The thing is, I have Reflect up, and I'm at +2 Spadef, so I'm going to protect the Zacian here. And just Draco Meteor into Cinderace. Man, 4 crits, but the ones that came out on my end now make things really scary, because the whole point was to boost up my special defense and survive all these attacks, right? It's looking pretty scary now, honestly. It comes down to... Well, first of all, did they target RESHIRAM? Surely they did. Oh, no, they Pyroballed. Okay, so the game's just over if I don't miss Draco here, right? Yeah. Actually, maybe Draco doesn't KO Cinderace. Okay, nice. But the idea there is even if they target the RESHIRAM, you'd have to most likely go for a non-fire type attack, changing your type, right? Then I bring in Rillaboom, and then Rillaboom can just Grassy Glide into Calyrex as I Behemoth Blade into Cinderace. So I still feel okay about the endgame, but this was way scarier than it needed to be. And in the end, yeah, the crit on Dialga definitely, well, I thought it made it easier to play out, but I wasn't confident in Max Quake picking up another KO onto it, so I wanted to be really cautious of that. But fortunately, our Pokemon were so bulky, like, even with all the critical hits, it was still fine, right? Like, it does go to show, like, a potential downside of, you know, setting up all these special defense boosts and using Reflect and Light Screen, because the strategy is very weak if your opponent manages to get a critical hit or two, right? So, and Cinderace being their last one was actually really scary as well, because that has a pretty favorable matchup into the Rillaboom, but yeah. Like, there isn't too much reason to Pyro Ball into Zacian there, because the RESHIRAM is just so much of a larger threat, so yeah. Just curious what the rest of the moves on Cinderace were. But normally you have one of like Sucker Punch or High Jump Kick, so if they had gone for that onto RESHIRAM, then I'd bring out the Rillaboom. And then it's basically mind games on both Pokemon. Like, do I expect either Pokemon to click Protect, right? Because if I glide into Calyrex and it protects, and Behemoth Blade doesn't KO the Cinderace, right? Which could be the case, especially if they didn't change their type. Although, actually, if you don't change your type, then the RESHIRAM is just getting a KO. So then it's a question of whether or not neutral Zacian there would get the knockout onto Cinderace there. But yeah, I just can't remember the last time I've seen like 4 critical hits in the span of like 3 turns. So that was wild, but still enough to end up winning. Although this game does show a little bit of the volatility when you rely so much on getting these stat boosts and yeah, maybe potentially decrease your opponent's stats as well. But RESHIRAM, once again, clutch game from it. So let's look for one final one. Third game here, and I always really enjoyed the games before Master Ball tier, because you just run into the craziest teams. I'm already feeling I got wrecked by this team, so I had to try it out coming my way. I don't know what Lunatone does, honestly. Perrserker with Zacian is also really interesting. So it's like, there's 3 clear trios here, right? Pelipper, Kingdra, Perrserker, Zacian, Groudon, Lunatone. My opponent's done a very nice job in overlaying all of those next to each other. One of the fun things about Team Preview is like the mind games of like having duos but then not putting the Pokemon out next to each other, and then like maybe your opponent doesn't identify the potential synergy behind them, or sometimes baiting your opponent into thinking, hey, this is a duo that I'm going to lead with, but then like those 2 Pokemon actually like don't come out on the field next to each other. I mean, I actually feel like RESHIRAM's excellent here, but I have to worry about Max Quake from Groudon. Like, I'm down for a Grimmsnarl RESHIRAM lead, I think. Perrserker Groudon is probably what scares me. Zacian in the back. They're probably going to max Groudon. Thundurus is just so... Like, the right matchup for Thundurus is basically against Landorus T. Because Landorus T otherwise is really good against RESHIRAM and Zacian. So, I think I'll go with Rillaboom as the last one. Fake Out is always valuable. Grassy Seed, Grassy Glide here. Or, sorry, Miracle Seed, Grassy Glide into Groudon. It's good damage as well. But Perrserker and Lunatone are both big wild cards for me here, just because I've really not faced against them anytime recently. Like, especially not in Series 12. So, that's always scary, not going up against just one, you know, slightly unfamiliar face, but actually 2. Okay, they go with Perrserker and Zacian. I mean, turn 1, like... I expect him to just double up on a Grim, maybe fake out Behemoth Blade it. To which I don't really have a great switch in here. So, definitely got outled here a little bit. I'm almost down to just switching a Rillaboom turn 1, Dynamax, and just Flare into a Zacian. I feel like I'm, there's probably some Perrserker strat here that I'm not seeing, and maybe RESHIRAM gets doubled up into. So let's see, maybe I speak it into existence. But I do find it valuable to conserve Grimmsnarl here, because I think being able to get a Reflect up against the Groudon that's probably in the back for my opponent is really good. I also don't know if I needed to Dynamax the RESHIRAM here, but I'd rather play it safe, given that I don't fully know what's coming from this duel right now. Nice lead though, right? Like, one of the best ways to deal with Grimmsnarl in this format is fast Fake Out user, plus Behemoth Blade from Zacian. Or really fast fake out user plus something like in one-shot Grimmsnarl, but truthfully there aren't that many mons / moves that can one-shot Grimmsnarl in this format. So let's see. Maybe they just Behemoth Blade RESHIRAM, honestly. Okay, good. It's fake out into that slot. Okay, cool. I'll take that trade off turn 1. There's Blade. Yep, onto Rillaboom. Like, Rillaboom's good in this game, right? But it's, I think, okay sacrificing it for Zacian. The downside in losing Rillaboom is that was pretty good into Groudon, damage output-wise, but, like, knocking out Zacian's always appreciated, and now I can just go out into Grimmsnarl and set up a Reflect, which I think is really good. Especially because, like, their restricted is Groudon, or their other restricted is Groudon, right? That's probably going to Dynamax for my opponent. I mean, Groudon and Lunatone as the final 2 makes the most sense to me right now. So, like, what I can do is set up a Reflect and max Wyrmwind into Groudon, so then, like, you basically just deal no damage into RESHIRAM right now with any of your Pokemon. And it's like, okay, let's say I sacrifice Grimmsnarl turn 1. Yeah, I get Rillaboom in turn 2. I can fake out the Perrserker, or I can glide into Groudon, but I'd rather get 8 turns of Reflect up right now. So I could just Flare into Perrserker. I just don't know, like, the rest of its moves. Focus Sash here makes some sense, too. So I think I'd rather Wyrmwind into Groudon and Reflect right now. Because the whole idea is that, like, Perrserker and what's their final Pokemon, Pelipper, Kingdra, Lunatone. Like, that's the other thing, right? One of those 3 have to be their final Pokemon. I don't even know what to expect from Lunatone, like, in the slightest. That's the main wildcard right now. We're not going to do too much damage with Wyrmwind, but I'm okay with that for now because I want to decrease Groudon's attack. I'm mainly curious what other moves Perrserker has here. Oh, RESHIRAM's faster than it. Okay. I shouldn't be shocked by it, but I honestly just, like, don't remember Perrserker's speed stat at all. That also doesn't look like AV Groudon based off the damage output, which is really nice. I could be wrong, though. I don't know my RESHIRAM into AV Groudon calcs, like, amazingly. Yeah, so after Reflect and the special attack, sorry, the attack drop, Max Quake doesn't even do half of our health, which is nice. And they just Iron Head. Beautiful. Okay, sweet. Not bad. So RESHIRAM heals first, then Groudon. Okay, we're faster than Perrserker, so I'm down to just double up into that now. Because the thing is, I've got Zacian in the endgame now to deal with their Groudon, right? So Flare plus Spirit Break is gonna knock out through Focus Sash. Okay. It's interesting because, you know, intuitively you wouldn't think RESHIRAM's necessarily amazing. Also here, like, a Quake shouldn't KO Grimmsnarl, which is why I'm okay going for this double up. I honestly just, like, I thought Perrserker was a lot faster than it is. Hence my surprise, like, me being surprised earlier. Like, and here I would just rather eliminate a variable that I'm not nearly as confident going up against, and, like, Groudon isn't that scary thanks to Reflect and the attack drop. That's the thing with Groudon, right? Like, it can be a very strong Dynamax option, but Intimidate just makes it so much weaker, or attack drops from Max Wyrmwind. So the combination of that plus Reflect has been so nice, right? Because my RESHIRAM has taken 2 Max Quakes, and with another Wyrmwind, I can survive a 3rd. And if you spend 3 turns of your Dynamax with Groudon, using super effective Max moves onto another Maxmon, you can't pick up a KO onto it, that's obviously very bad. So this should be Lunatone, right? Okay, I really don't know what you do here. But I've got Solar Beam, and we've got the Sun up. Zacian's in the back for us, so... And I mean, I misspoke because I can't go for another max move here, obviously. So I will feint this turn, but I mean, I'm just down. You know what? I think it gets access to Ally Switch, so that's my fear. But I do want to just Spirit Break and Solar Beam into Lunatone right now. Okay, no Ally Switch. That's good. This is Grassy Terrain boosted Solar Beam. That's the other cool thing. I think, like, Solar Beam on this RESHIRAM is actually so strong, thanks to, 1, you setting up the Sun, and then 2, Rillaboom being on the team as well, allowing you to set up the Grassy Terrain. Nice. That's beautiful. Okay, so we managed to handle both Lunatone and Perrserker, but I had a lot of fear in my eyes, I'm not gonna lie. So third Quake here, that will give him a third special defense boost, but the beautiful thing here is I don't care about you getting special defense boosts because I've got a Zacian waiting in the back to just come in and click Behemoth Blade. The only interesting thing here is whether or not I want to consider going for, like, subs with Zacian rather than just going for a Behemoth Blade immediately. So the idea is, like, to alternate between Protect and sub. Just because I'm not confident Behemoth Blade will KO from the range that they're at. And so use Spirit Break a bunch on Groudon to just like whittle away at it. And then also if you miss a single Precipice Blades at any point while I try a sub, you're also in a lot of trouble, right? I could just Behemoth Blade here, but then a crit could actually be, like a double crit here, could actually be pretty annoying. And I still have so many turns of Reflect, so... yeah, I am down to go for Protect this turn into a Spirit Break. I just want to play around crits, especially after that last game. Okay, yeah, I mean, I think Blade may have just KO'd there, but I just want to like cover for Groudon being extra bulky there. So yeah, we played some really cool teams today, and you know, obviously pre-Master Ball, like you just run into so many wild things, but like 3 interesting restricted duos. Oh, I mean, I guess this one was Groudon Zacian, but my opponent had Perrserker as well as Lunatone, so honestly, like, my general tendency is if I'm going up against a Pokemon where I don't know what they really do, first of all, assume Focus Sash, because a lot of these Pokemon typically will be, like, more frail, or, like, they don't have great, like, defensive typings, and so that can lead you to think, oh, yeah, I can just use one hit and then, like, pick up a KO onto it, but then sometimes they'll be sashed and allow them to stick on the field for a little bit longer. So assume that, and then 2, like, if you know what the partner Pokemon's going to do, like, I know exactly what AV or just regular Groudon's going to do in that position, let me just basically make sure that I eliminate the unknown variable from that game, right? So both Perrserker and Lunatone were relatively unknown variables, but Turn 1 was a great trade-off for us, and then we were able to just, like, snowball the game from there. I think one of the downsides of my opponent's team is that there's so many clear duos that it falters as soon as you break up the duels, right? Like, you basically have to pick 2 of the 3 duels of Pelipper, Kingdra, Perrserker, Zacian, and Groudon plus Lunatone. And obviously, if you go Pelipper, Kingdra, then you could also go Zacian, Groudon as the final 2, right? So actually, you don't necessarily need to follow one of those 3 duels, but then it's like, you do break up, like, the synergy from the other 2, right? So, really curious what Lunatone was going to do there, but I was like, I'd rather not find out. Let's just KO it with Solar Beam, and I don't think my opponent was expecting the Solar Beam there. So RESHIRAM put in a lot of work today. Maybe we'll go up against some more standard teams that can show off how we can, you know, work against some of the more meta teams right now, like the Zacian Sun Charizard stuff, or like the Zacian Kyogre Tailwind stuff. But either way, TSL Tang, once again, one of my all-time favorite team builders in Sword and Shield. So thanks to him once again for an awesome team. Thanks to you all as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.